All right, hold on. I'm going to get this mic cover. I'm going to hold it, and then I'm going to start talking. So, everyone doing good. It's opening night. Y'all are going to do fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I don't know.
Math class, just listening to My Chemical Romance. And just because I wanted to, and that's an obvious good choice of music. And
Okay, I'm having a pretty good day. I didn't think Aiden, my boyfriend, would come to see this, but he did. He doesn't really like musicals because he's weird like that. And I was like, you're not going to like it. He was like, you're in it and my friends are in it, I'm going to like it. So if I force him to like it, because I'm forcing him to watch, what? Because I'm forcing him to watch, what's it called? Hairspray.
6, is that me? Hi. But I'm also really. Yeah, get around. I'm really nervous. I'm also very excited. Is it covered? No. I think that everyone's going to do really good on this. I am existing. Tired. Everything's. I'm gonna pass out later. It's fine.
Number 8, no.
What's up? No?
Yeah.
Yes?
8.
I have number 8. It's a good day because it's opening night, and on opening night we open. Okay. So I think so. Do you want me to try saying some of my lines? So you can, okay, hold on.
We'll just keep it on.
Hold on, let's ask the kindergarten class, how many of you can draw? And all the hands shoot up. What can you draw?
Sounds good. Next.
Okay, so I don't like these mic checks because Parker always immediately turns me off because my mic just works so well. But you know what? Today I'm going to do it anyway. This is my song. It's called...
Okay, if you've got a good okay line, come backstage. Okay, last but certainly not least.
It's me. Okay. Hopefully this works. It's worked every other day, so should be fine. We good? We good?
Sounds good. All right, we're good to go. We're good.
All right.
Can we do it with the microphone again? Yeah, Parker, unmuted. David, unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I love you.
One more time, really close it up.
That hurt. Okay.
Best song in the show.
It is a sweet life when I take the time to see it. And there is wonder inside me if I can find a way to free it. Sometimes it seems so easy to walk through my life with my eyes closed to heartache and strife. But every so often, even in my mind's darkest night, there comes streaming. Oh, wait. Oh, through my window. Okay, I feel like I missed it. Okay. All right. Okay. There comes through my window. Okay, can we start like on the line? All right. Even in my mind's darkest night, there comes streaming through my window a fragment of light, a glimpse of truth for me to partake, and I might miss it.
kindergarten class. How many of you can draw? And all the hands shoot up.
Ooh! Yes, of course we can draw.
All of us. What can you draw?
Anything.
How about a dog eating a fire truck in the jungle?
Sure, how big do you want it?
How many of you can sing?
Of course we can sing.
What do you like to sing to?
Anything.
What if you don't know the words?
That's okay, we'll make them up. Let's sing.
Now?
Why not?
ABC kindergartner. It is my first day at school.
How many of you can dance? What music do you like to dance to?
Anything. Let's dance.
Oh. Okay. Oh. Do you act in plays?
Yes!
Do you write poetry?
Yes!
Do you play musical instruments?
Yes!
Can you read and write and count?
Yes! We're learning that stuff right now.
Try the same questions on a group of college students. Some students will raise their hand when asked if they can draw, or paint, or act, or play a musical instrument. But more often than not, those who do raise their hands will want to qualify their responses with their limitations.
I can play piano, but not well. My mother made me.
I only sing in the shower.
I only draw conclusions.
When asked why the limitations, students answer,
I don't have any talent.
Who's got the time?
you can imagine the response asked of an older audience.
I got my kids.
You have got to be kidding me.
Maybe after 3 martinis.
What happened between kindergarten and now? Whatever happened to? Yes, of course I can.
I've become so caught up in my grown-up stuff. It seems I've lost some spontaneity. Seems I've lost perspective on living life. Every day at my job with my family, but I'm discovering all I really need to know. I learned in kindergarten about how to live, what to do, what to be. This is sandbox code of ethics, not some grad school mumbo jumbo that had the greatest impact on me. I learned to share, play fair, don't hit people.
If you hurt someone, say you're sorry.
To name just a few, clean up your own mess.
And wash your hands before you eat.
Hold hands and stick together when you cross the street.
Live a balanced life, think some, learn some, work and play.
And sing and dance and draw.
Take some now, play.
Be aware of wonder.
Think of the seed in the paper cup. Who knows why the root goes down and the plant goes up?
up each day. Think how much better our home would be. And what if this were a matter of government's policy? And it's still true when we go into the world. In these uncertain times, uncertain weather, it doesn't matter if you're 6 years old or 60. We should all hold hands, and stick together.
Cinderella was the title on the chalkboard marquee.
Given the task of dramatizing a fairy tale for the teachers' conference, the kindergarten class decided on the classic rags to riches story, Cinderella.
You know how it goes. Shy and beautiful protagonist, victimized by abusive step-parent, waits for a wise matriarchal figure to transform her and deliver her from codependency to bliss.
In other words, if you're good looking, good at heart, and have a fairy godmother, you've got it made.
It was a good choice.
A cast list was compiled as the class talked through the plot of the drama.
There was the absolutely ravishing Cinderella.
The evil stepmother.
The two wicked but
Stupid stepsisters,
Wise and beautiful fairy godmother.
the pumpkin,
mice,
Coachmen,
Horses. Nyeh.
All of the people at the King's Ball.
generals,
Admirals.
knights,
princesses,
and of course, the ultimate object of fabled desire, the prince.
Who, if you really remember, was really only a salesman interested in pushing a stock of glass slippers.
The children were allowed to choose their role, as parts were allotted. Each child was filled with felt paper and made to stand in the corner of the class while the act was completed. Finally, every child had a role.
Except one small boy who had remained quiet and disengaged through the selection process. Norman, a boy who was somehow different. Not weird, just different in the way he looked at things. Norman, like so many other great but misunderstood thinkers, was teased by his classmates, causing him to live on the fringe of kindergarten society.
Well, Norman, the teacher asked, what are you going to be?
I'm gonna be the pig.
But there is no pig in Cinderella.
Well, there is now.
Norman didn't relate to being a footman or a mouse or even a pumpkin.
He knew his character, Hank.
and he was not about to give up his part of the play and go stand by the wall where a loser would stand.
He intended to participate wherever pigs fit into the scheme of things, without giving up dignity or identity. He took it for granted that there was a place for pigs, and that the teacher would know that.
So, what do you say to a kid who's already thinking of a costume of pink long underwear, pipe cleaner tail, and a paper cup for a nose?
What do you say to an innocent little pig who doesn't see his career as an actor teetering on the brink of utter humiliation?
And what do you say to all those pigs? All those who are different and don't fit into the available boxes and pigeonholes.
So, what did the teacher say at that moment?
Well, sometimes teachers think more like fairy godmothers.
So be it.
Norman was declared the pig in Cinderella.
Which was perfectly fine with the rest of the class. Nobody else wanted to be the pig anyhow.
And since there was nothing in the script explaining what the pig was supposed to do, that action was left entirely up to Norman. And as it turns out, he gave himself one of the all-time best walk-on parts in the history of children's theater. He decided he was Cinderella's personal pig. Wherever she went, he went.
He made no sound. He simply sat on his back haunches and observed, like some silently supportive Greek chorus.
Norman reflected the details of the dramatic actions, looking worried,
Sad,
Anxious,
hopeful,
puzzled,
mad,
bored.
sick.
and pleased, as the moment required.
At the climax, when the prince finally placed the last slipper on Cinderella's foot, and the ecstatic couple hugged and rode off to live happily ever after, Norman finally made his move. He went wild with joy, dancing around the stage, and barking like a dog.
The teacher kindly explained to Norman that even if it was a pig in Cinderella, there certainly wasn't room for a dancing bark. You know what, Norman? Yeah, it's true. Knock him dead, pig.
Later, when Norman stumbled out onto stage for his curtain call, the applause turned into a spontaneous standing ovation.
The teachers knew that the real Cinderella was not the little girl with the brown hair and fluffy tutu, but Norman, the dancing, barking pig.
And they knew that the real fairy godmother was not the child waving her fairy wand, but the teacher standing, weeping in the wings.
Kindergarten teachers know magic when they see it.
Performed a highly acclaimed production of Cinderella. Sometimes the teacher would have to explain to them what it was about the performance that was so unique.
It has a pig in it, you see?
Oh, really?
Yes, the star of the show is a dancing, barking pig.
But there is no dancing, barking pig in Cinderella.
There is now.
An early, dry, dark evening in October, the neighborhood kids are playing hide and seek. How long since I played hide and seek? 40 years? Okay, maybe more. I remember how I could join in their game in an instant if they invited me. But adults don't play hide and seek. Not for fun, anyway. Did you guys ever have a kid in your neighborhood who always hid so good nobody could ever find him? We did. After a while, he'd go off, leaving him to rot wherever he was. Sooner or later, he'd show up all mad because we didn't keep looking for him. And we'd get mad back because he wasn't playing the game the way it was supposed to be played. There's hiding and there's finding, we'd say. And he'd say, well, it's hide and go seek, not hide and give up. And we'd yell about who made what rules and who cared about who anyway. And we would tell him we wouldn't play with him anymore if he didn't get it straight. Hide and seek and yell. No matter what, though, he'd hide too good again. He's probably still hiding for all I know. The neighborhood game goes on, and there's a kid hiding under my front window in a pile of leaves. He's been there for some time now, and everybody else is found. They're thinking about giving up on him. So, I thought about walking over to the base and telling them where he's hiding. I also thought about setting the leaves on fire. Finally, I just yelled, "Get found, kid!" It's hard to know how to be helpful sometimes. A man I know found out last year he had terminal cancer. He was a doctor, and he knew about dying. And he didn't want to make his family and friends suffer through that with him. So he kept his secret, and he died. Everyone said how brave he was to bear his suffering in silence, but privately, his family and friends said how angry they were, that he didn't need them, didn't trust their strength, and they were hurt that he hadn't said goodbye. He hid too good. Getting found would have kept him in the game. Hide and seek, grown-up style. Wanting to hide, needing to be sought, confused about being found. A game I like better than hide and seek is called sardines. Now, in sardines, the person who is it goes and hides. And everybody else goes looking for him.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
But when they find him, they don't tell anybody else. Instead, they get in there and hide there with him. Then, somebody giggles, and then somebody laughs, and everybody gets found! By the sound of laughter, everybody gets found.
hero. Walters is a truck driver, your average guy. He is sitting in his lawn chair in his backyard, wishing he could fly.
For as long as he could remember, he wanted to go up, to be high up in the air somehow, to ride the sky.
But there was no way he was going to fly the plane, and it went to see too dangerous.
So he spent a lot of summer afternoons sitting in his old, ordinary aluminum lawn chair, the kind with the rivets and the webbing.
The next chapter of our story takes place on July 2nd, 1982, and is in newspapers and on televisions across the country.
There's old Larry Walters up over there over Los Angeles, flying at last.
Really getting up there.
Only now, he's hooked up to 42 helium-filled surplus weather balloons.
Larry has a parachute, radio, peanut butter jelly, and a BB gun to pop the balloons to come down.
But instead of being just a couple of 100 feet over his neighborhood, he shot up 11,000 feet right over the approach corridor to the Los Angeles International Airport. This is a true story.
Others that the human situation is completely hopeless.
Meanwhile, the Larry Walters of the world are busy tying balloons to their chairs.
When asked by the press why he did it, he said,
You can't just sit there.
When asked if he was scared, he answered.
Definitely.
If asked if he would do it again, he said, nope.
When asked, are you glad you did it?
"Are you glad you did it?"
Are you glad you did it?
Yes, 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 oh yes.
If the dream is held close to the heart,
And imagination is what's applied at hand.
Everything is still possible.
oh, I was asking for your mic. Excuse me. Excuse me, any place to play is back.
He is a case of the midwinter spiritual rot and a terminal cold he's had since September. Are you kidding? There are times I get so low. It takes an extension ladder to climb out. No one's ever really quite pinned me down like that before. Usually, they ask what I think they should do. My solace is not religion or yoga or rum or even deep sleep. It's Beethoven. I put his Ninth Symphony on the stereo, pull my headphones on tight, and I lie down on the floor. The music comes on like the first day of creation, and I think about old Mr. B. He knew a lot about depression and unhappiness. He moved from place to place, searching for the right place, had a lousy love life, quarreled with his friends all the time. Mr. B wanted to be a virtuoso pianist. He wanted to sing well too. But back when he was still quite young, he began to lose his hearing, which is usually bad news for pianists and singers. By 1818, when he was only 48 years old. He was stone cold death, which makes it all the more amazing that he completed his great Ninth Symphony 5 years later. He never really heard it. He just thought it. So I lie there with my headphones on, wondering if it could ever have felt the same to Beethoven, the way it sounds in my head. Crescendo rises and my sternum starts to vibrate, and by the time the final pedal drum rounds out all those big chords, I'm on my feet, singing along with gibberish German with the tiny choir to the final movements of the end of the world, the coming of God and his angels. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Woo! Kaboom! Bang! Lord. Uplifted, excited, exalted, affirmed, and overwhelmed, man alive. Out of all that sorrow and trouble, out of all that frustration and disappointment, out of all that deep and permanent silence, came all that majesty and joy. He defied his fate with jubilation. So I can't just sit there in my winter ass heat, wringing my hands, feeling sorry for myself. In the face of that music, not only does it wipe out spiritual rot, but it probably cures colds too. Someday, some incredible December night, when I am very rich, I am going to rent me a grand hall and a mighty choir and a mighty symphony orchestra. Stand on the podium and conduct the night. And in the awesome silence that follows, I will bless all the gods that be for Ludwig von Beethoven, for his knife and for his light. Man alive!
The rap on the door was sharp, urgent, insistent, a foreboding of crisis. Me, rushing to the door, fumbling with the lock, my adrenaline pumping, preparing for emergency. Small boy, odd expression, hands me a scrawled note on much folded paper. My name is Donnie. I will rig your leaves. $1 a yard. I am deaf. You can write to me I can read, I rate good. Now, behind our house is a row of tall, middle-aged matronly maple trees, extravagantly decked out in a million leaf sequins. And in season, these sequins detach and lie about the feet of these matrons, like dressing gowns they've just stepped out of in preparation for the bath of winter. I like the way it looks. I like the way it looks very much.
His wife does not. The gardening magazine does not like it either. Leaves are not good for grass. Leaves are untidy. Leaves are moldy, slimy.
There is a reason for leaves. There is no reason for mowed grass, say I.
His wife does not see it this way.
There is an unspoken accusation in the air of laziness.
We have been through this before.
But this year, a bargain has been struck in the name of the scientific method.
Half of the yard will be properly raked.
And the other half we left in the care of nature. Come summer, we shall see.
And so my part is raked.
And mine is not.
We will see.
Yes, we shall. Now, the trees are here because of the leaves and the seeds. Zillions of seeds helicopter out of the sky to green the earth, and the leaves follow to protect and nourish the next generation. But stony ground, rot, bugs, birds, bacteria, and people all interfere. But somehow, some seeds make it. Some tenacious seeds take hold and hold on for dear life. But we mess with this process at our peril. Say I, this is important. My name is Donnie. I will rake your leaves. $1 a yard. I am deaf. You can write to me. I can read. I rate good. He holds out the paper and pencil with much hope, patience, and goodwill. How can I explain to him the importance of the scientific experiment going on in my backyard? He turns to go, and quickly I take the paper and pencil in hand and write, "Yes, I would like you to rake my leaves." There is a grave nod from this attentive businessman-like child. Do you rake them when they are wet? Yes. Do you have your own rake? No. This is a pretty big yard. I think I should give you $2. 3! A contract is struck, and the rake is procured. And Donnie, the deaf leaf raker, goes to work in the fast-falling November twilight. In silence he rakes. In silence I watch through the window of my dark house. Are there any sounds at all in his mind? I wonder. He rakes the leaves into a large pile as instructed. Of course, I will go out later and spread them out over the yard. I am stubborn about this. But he goes back over, picking up any missed leaves by hand and adding them to the pile. He is stubborn about his values. Raking the leaves means all the leaves. He reports to the door, signing that it is getting dark and that he must go home to eat. Having been paid in advance and leaving the work unfinished, I wonder if he'll return. At my age, I'm getting cynical. But come morning, he has returned to the task. After much meticulous work, the yard is leaf-free. He reports to the door, signing that the work is finished. And he picks up a handful of the brightest yellow leaves and a handful of helicoptered seeds. And as he walks away up the street, I see him throw one helicoptered seed up into the air after the next. A fringe benefit. I stand in my door, smiling at his grace. A fringe benefit. Tomorrow, I'll go out to the yard and spread the leaves out into the ravine embankment behind the house. I'll do it in silence. I wouldn't have the heart to undo his work. My work will just have to stand aside for something more human. The trees have let go, the leaves have let go, and now it's time for me to let go and cast my lot with this child, who, like the seeds, is another one of nature's tenacious survivors. Hold on, Donnie. Hold on.
Away in the strainer at the bottom of their sink. What I'll call for a little with some stuff. Now, any rational, objective person would say that this is simply a mixture of food bits that are not small enough to go down the drain, comprised of carbohydrates, fats, fibers, and protein.
Dinner dandruff.
Furthermore, the person would say that this stuff has already been sterilized in the cooking and then washed clean with the suds and hot water in the sink.
But any teen who's ever been forced to do the dishes can claim that sink is a lie.
She will claim that that gooey mess is a toxic catastrophe.
Calamity. To any rational guy or girl, it's enough to make you hurl.
Oh, please, I deal with that stuff all the time.
About my mom, whatever I can say, she'll deal with that gunk any old day. She'll reach into the sink and pick it up barehanded.
Barehanded.
And she'll drop it into the garbage, no complaint. To top that, I once saw her run her fingers through a wet garbage bag in search of a teaspoon she dropped in there.
Barehanded?
Barehanded.
Oh,
I found it.
when she found it, it was covered in coffee and scrambled eggs and chicken fat. I almost passed out when she gave it to me to wash.
Once, my French teacher had taught us the word ordure in one of her lessons.
Order?
Oh dear.
It meant disgusting mess, and there's no doubt I knew exactly what she was talking about. Ordure.
Oh dear.
No matter what my mom says, it should be told that stuff is gross and deadly. And I'm convinced if you ever accidentally touch it, you must never touch the rest of your body till you've scalded, soaped, and rinsed. Even worse, I feel like it could come out of the sink as a life form and come after me when I'm sleeping.
Come to think of it, I've never seen Dad come within 3 feet of the sink in his life. He was just lazy in the opinion of his wife. But I knew that he knew what we knew about that gunk. And I said to him, I doubt Jesus ever had to clean that mess out. He agreed.
Jesus?
Dad. It was the only theological discussion we've ever had.
Graduating top of her class, Emma Worcestershire.
Imagine a speaker at a high school graduation. She asked the students,
How many of you guys would like to be adults one day?
may not want to go on. But sooner or later, the truth comes out. The fact is, membership in the community depends on our willingness to do these chores, my friends. Being an adult is dirty work, but someone has to do it.
Summer of 1959, at the Feather River Inn near the town of Blairson in the Sierra Nevada mountains of Northern California, a resort community, and I, just out of college, have a job that combines being the night desk clerk and helping out with the horse wrangling at the stables. The owner/manager is Italian Swiss with European notations about conditions of employment. He and I do not get along. I think he's a fascist who wants peasant employees who know their place. He thinks I'm a good example of how democracy can be carried too far. One week, the employees have been served with the same thing for lunch every single day. 2 wieners, a mound of sauerkraut, and stale rolls. To compound insult with injury, the cost of the meals was deducted from our checks. I was outraged. On Friday night of that awful week, I was at my desk job around 11 o'clock and the night auditor had just come on duty. I went into the kitchen to grab a bite to eat and found a note to the chef to the effect that wieners and sauerkraut were on the employee menu for the next 2 days. For one of any better audience, I unloaded on the night auditor, Sigmund Woolman.
I have had it up to here. I am sick and tired of this crap. And it's insulting. And nobody is going to make me eat wieners and sauerkraut for a whole week and make me pay for it. Who does he think he is anyhow? How can life be sustained on wieners and sauerkraut? This is not American. And I don't like wieners and sauerkraut enough to eat it for a whole day, for God's sake. And the whole hotel stinks anyhow, and the horses are all napped, the guests are all idiots. And I'm packing my bag and heading to Montana. I've never even heard of wieners and sauerkraut. I got stuff to pay.
Something like that. I raved on this way for 20 minutes. And needn't repeat it all here. You get the gist. My monologue was delivered at the top of my lungs, punctuated by blows,
Blows on the front
the
deck,
kicking of chairs,
and profanity,
a call to arms.
freedom, unions, uprisings, and the breaking of chains for the working masses.
As I pitched my fit, Sigmund Woolman sat watching me with sorrowful eyes. Put a bloodhound in a suit, and you've got Sigmund Woolman. And he's got good reason to look sorrowful. Survivor of Auschwitz, 3 years, German Jew. He liked the night job. Gave him intellectual space. Gave him peace and quiet. And most importantly, he could go into the kitchen and get a snack whenever he wanted to. All the wieners and sauerkraut he wanted. To him, a feast. In Auschwitz, he dreamed of such a time. The only person he sees at work is me, the nightly disturber of his dream. And here I am again, a one-man war party at full cry.
Ah! No, why?
Listen. You know what's wrong with you? It's not the boss, and it's not the wieners, and it's not the crowd, and it's not the chef, and it's not even the job.
What's wrong with me?
You think you know everything, but you don't know the difference between an inconvenience and a problem. Your house is on fire, you got nothing to eat, your neck is broken, you got a problem. Everything else is just inconvenient. Life is inconvenient. Life is lumpy. You'll learn to know the difference between an inconvenience and a problem. You'll live longer. And you won't know people like me so much. Good night.
There, in the late night darkness of the Feather River Inn, Sigmund Woman simultaneously kicked my butt and opened a window in my mind. Problem or inconvenience? I call this the woman test of reality. Life is lumpy, but a lump in the oatmeal, a lump in the throat, and a lump in the breast are not the same lump. We should learn to know the difference. Good night, Sig.
Three slabs of smooth gray granite. And having checked with a compass to be certain, I can tell you that this bench has been so that the long sides face east and west, and the short sides north and south. This bench has been placed with a purpose of the highest hill in the city, so that on a clear summer's morning, you can see 60 miles. This bench is a tombstone in a cemetery. I would take you there to sit, if I could. You wouldn't feel uncomfortable sitting on it, I promise. You wouldn't even notice what it was at first. It's right on the edge of a paved lane that curves through the burial grounds. The placement of the bench, the consciousness of the view, all say that someone went to a lot of trouble to be useful in death. A gesture of quiet generosity has been made. Funerals have a certain narcissism to them. What I want for my funeral and what I want for my epitaph. A very human holding onto identity as long as breath and granite last. But this bench is different, unique. First of all, there's no name inscribed on it, no conventional epitaph, no dates. Just an open invitation to sit and think. What marks this grave is the gift of silent companionship that bridges loneliness. This bench has become my sanctuary over the years, and I know that I'm not the only one to use it, because once I found a note taped under the bench. Not for me, to a young woman from a young man who wrote her careless poetry with great passion. And no, I'm not sorry I snooped. And yes, I put it back as I found it. And no, I didn't hide in the bushes to see who came for the note. Secret lovers have enough problems as it is. But it was on this bench, after one of those milestone birthdays, that I came to the moment where one crosses over from the abstract intellectual knowledge that all human beings die to the active realization that I will die. Me. I will no longer be, sooner or later. Not only did I realize that I will die, I walked away thinking, well, it's okay. I connect that moment of enlightenment, the peculiar sanctuary of the bench, and whoever provided it. This bench will last hundreds of years, and many people will sit on it and think not of the name of its owner, but of the nameless joys of this sweet life and the mystery of death, and how utterly amazing it all is, and that somehow, sometimes, things are just as they should be. It is a sweet life when I take the time to see it, and there is wonder inside me. if I can find a way to free it. Sometimes it seems so easy to walk through my life with my eyes closed to heartache and strife. But every so often, even in my mind's darkest night, there comes streaming through my window a fragment of light, a glimpse of truth for me to partake. And I might miss it if I'm not awake. Can I live in the dark? I could be part of that light. How do I capture that spark, reflect it into the heart of the night? There's no way to measure what these fragments are worth. Scattered moments of connection to life on this earth. Flashes of understanding that can set your soul ablaze softly through all of your days. Stop now and listen. Can you hear a faint melody just outside here? All around us, a great symphony, but nothing in life has the power to inspire, like adding your own voice to the mighty choir. How can we live in the dark when we could be part of that light? How do we capture that spark, reflect it into the heart of the night?
Ick.
Huh?
Uh-oh.
Ick?
Uh-oh.
Yikes.
Uh-oh.
Whoa.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yuck.
Uh-oh. 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 Is it in the dictionary?
Hardly ever see it on the page.
But it's part of our vocabulary.
And has been since the diaper age.
Uh-oh.
Moments after he began to chew on the apple, she gave him what he said.
Uh-oh.
If she understood it too.
Millions of sounds have come and gone throughout history as we've reached for ways to communicate more effectively.
Those only words and news that baby carries. Heaven runs the bell.
Together with shrugs and funny faces.
Boo!
Neener, neener, neener. Ha, ha, ha. Uh-oh. Quietly reverberating. Since Adam's time is part of a symphony of squeaks and squawks communicating elaborate thoughts with perfect clarity.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Ouch!
Uh-oh. Huh.
Uh-uh.
Ooh.
Wow!
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Yay!
Occasions involving amateurs, everything never goes right. The central figure in this drama is the mother of the bride, the MOTB. Not the bride and groom or minister, mother. Usually a polite, reasonable, intelligent, and sane human being, Mother was mentally unhinged by the announcement of her daughter's betrothal. I don't mean she was unhappy, as is often the case. She was overcome with joy and just about succeeded in overcoming everybody else with her joy. Nobody knew it, but this lady had been waiting with a script that would have been met with Steven Spielberg's approval. A royal wedding fit for a princess bride. The father of the bride began to pray for an elopement. She had 7 months to work, and no detail was left to chance or human error. Everything that could be engraved was engraved. There were teas and showers and dinners. An 18-piece brass and wind ensemble was engaged. The bride and groom met with the minister only 3 times. The MOTB was in his office more than the cleaning lady. Not only were the outfits for the bridesmaids made to order, but the tuxedos for the groom and his men were bought. Not rented, mind you, bought. And if all that wasn't enough, the ring was returned to the jeweler for a larger stone, quietly subsidized by the MOTB, of course. When I say the lady came unhinged, I mean unhinged. The juggernaut of fate rolled down the road, and the final hour came. Guests in formal attire packed the church. The orchestra gushed great music, Enough candles were lit to bring daylight back to the evening, and the mighty MOTB coasted down the aisle with the grandeur of an opera diva at a premiere performance. She had done it. Never did the MOTB take her seat with such satisfaction. She had done it. She glowed, beamed, smiled, and sighed. Finally, the music softened, and 9, count 'em, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, bridesmaids locked steps down the aisle while the groom and his men marched into place. Finally, the wedding march thundered from the orchestra. Here comes the bride, preceded by 4 enthusiastic mini princesses chucking flower petals and 2 ring bearers, 1 for each ring. The congregation rose and turned in anticipation. Ah, the bride. She had been dressed for hours, if not days. No adrenaline was left in her body. Left alone with her father in the reception hall of the church, the bride walked along the tables filled with gourmet goodies and absent-mindedly sampled the first little pink and yellow and green mints. Then she picked through the bowls of mixed nuts and ate the pecans, followed by a cheese ball or 2, some glazed almonds, a little sausage with a frilly toothpick in it, a shrimp blanketed in bacon, and a cracker piled high with liver pate. To wash this down, a glass of pink champagne given to her by her father to calm her nerves. What you noticed as the bride stood in the doorway of the church was not her dress, but her face, white. For what was coming down the aisle was a living grenade with the pin pulled out. The bride threw up just as she walked by her mother. And by threw up, I don't mean a polite little ladylike erp into her handkerchief. She puked. There is just no nice word for it. I mean, she hosed the front of the chancel, hitting 2 bridesmaids, a ring bearer, the minister, and the groom. Having disgorged her hors d'oeuvres and the last of her dignity, the bride went limp in her father's arms, while her groom sat down where he had been standing, too stunned to function. The mother of the bride moaned, slumped over, and passed out cold. There was a fire drill then and there that only the Marx Brothers could have topped. Groomsmen rushed about heroically, mini princess flower girls squalled, bridesmaids sobbed, and people with weak stomachs headed for the exits. The smell of fresh wretch drifted across the church. What happened next? Well, we all went back to real life. Guests were invited to adjourn to the reception hall, though they did not eat or drink as much as they might have in different circumstances. The bride was cleaned up, consoled, and the wedding went on. When the groom said,
"For better or for worse,"
he meant it. The cast was reassembled where we left off. A single flute played a quiet air. The words were spoken, and the deed was done. Everyone cried as you're supposed to do at weddings, mostly because the groom held her through the entire ceremony. They lived happily ever after, as anyone does, happier than most, in fact. They've been married about 12 years now and have 3 lively children. But that's not the end of our story. On the 10th anniversary of this disastrous affair, a party was held, a feast was laid, best friends invited, and 3 TV sets were mustered. There were 3 video cameras at the scene of the accident. All 3 videos were shown at once. The effect was pretty interesting, especially with the running commentary and, the high definition stuff that is a little gross to watch. The part that got the most cheers was when the camera panned over to the father of the bride as he contemplates his wife's revival. This is my favorite part of the story, not because of the party, but because of who organized it. Of course, the infamous MOTB. The mother of the bride is still at it, but she's a lot looser these days. Not only did she forgive herself and everyone else for their part in the debacle, she forgave herself. There's a word for what she has, grace. And that's why the same man has been married to her for 40 years and why her daughter loves her still.
Something, anything that does not involve contact with 3-year-olds. Oh, sure, someday he might find this all amusing. But in the deepest part of his heart, he is sorry he has kids. Sorry he married. And above all, sorry that this particular son cannot be traded in for a model that works.
Why me? Why me? Why me? Why?
Well, the answer is simple. He has a son. The son is 16. Life happens. Someday, some long day from now, he may laugh, even about this. But for now, there is only anguish. This is 1988. The same father and the same son. And they are still running. Out jogging at 6 a.m. The son is 28 now, with his own 3-year-old son. The father is 50. As they run across a busy intersection, the son puts his arm on the father's elbow to protect him from the danger of oncoming traffic. When they run up onto the hill, you can hear them laugh. The son does not run ahead of the father, but rather at the father's pace. They love each other a lot. You can see that. So they will work to maintain their love.
Oh, there will be times when they'll be mad at each other again.
And there'll be times they love each other.
And one of their favorite stories will always be
Once upon a time in a supermarket.
stage. My children are beginning to look middle-aged, and they pat me a lot in a very patronizing manner for no apparent reason. I don't ask them why they pat me. I'll take any affection I can get from them in any way they want to dish it out. Another little clue is my sudden desire to take small children on excursions. My granddaughter Sarah and I went on an adventure that sounds like the title of a B-grade children's storybook. Grandmother and granddaughter go to the zoo. First time. And we saw the lions and the tigers and the giraffes and the gorillas and the kangaroos, every last living creature the zoo had to offer, and even some possible dead ones. But for all my, oh, Sarah, look at she was more interested in the pigeons that hung around the concession stand. What she liked about the pigeons is that she could almost touch them, but not quite. No matter how carefully, cautiously, quietly she approached, the pigeons always managed to stay just one small step out of reach. The distance between her and the pigeons moved in concert, and she spent most of her time at the zoo trying to close this moving space. All of the other animals were over there, behind glass or bars or moats, in another world. But the pigeons were over here, in her world, and it would be made even more real if she could just get her hands on one. What would you do if you caught one, Sarah? She didn't know. Possessing was not in the plan. All that mattered was chasing. Driving home in a thunderstorm, Sarah fell asleep in her car seat behind me. In her parents' driveway, I looked at her for a long time. I wondered Who is this child? There will always be a moving space between us. And just as she approaches the pigeons, I will approach Sarah, carefully, cautiously, and quietly. There are 4 people who think of her as their granddaughter, and 2 people who think of her as their daughter. But Sarah belongs only to herself. There will always be a moving space between us, this untraversable distance that must be treated with respect. And just as Sarah doesn't know what she would do if she ever caught a pigeon, I don't know what I would do if I ever caught Sarah. To love something and to possess it are not the same thing.
The most time-bound man lives in my neighborhood. He's always in a hurry and always late. Always harassed and buzzed out. I'm not exactly sure just what he does for a living, but it seems to involve buying and selling something downtown. He's a businessman. His choice of appropriate transportation is a brand new Range Rover, a vehicle built by the British for high adventure in the wilds of Africa. It is equally capable in steep canyons, quicksand, and blizzard conditions. It can outrun a lion and take a rhino charge head on. Yay. This particular Veltmobile is equipped with a winch, a gun rack, and a CB radio, as well as an impressive stereo system, 2 cellular phones, a fax machine, and a coffee maker in his glove compartment. Daily, I see my neighbor rushing out of his house, burdened with the impediments of high adventure, carrying golf bag, gym bag, lunch bag, umbrella, raincoat, coffee, a sack of garbage for the dumpster, and his briefcase. About the briefcase. It is made of the purest, unblemished leather. The best parts of the hides of 4 carefully selected cows who gave their lives so that he might have this talisman of success. It has solid brass fittings, a combination lock, and his name embossed in gold. So, it's a Tuesday morning, around 7 o'clock on a fine day in June. A neighbor lady and I hit the streets, headed for work, around the same time. She is a social worker for the Episcopal Church and drives an 8-year-old Ford, just get me there and back, please God, sedan. I drive a 1952 GMC go ahead and hit me pickup truck. At the same time, the owner of the Range Rover rushes up. His life is leveraged to the max these days. His mind is in 3 continents at once. So he is in no mood for small talk. He grunts at us as he loads his lorry for his expedition downtown into the front seat and cranks the mighty engine like he's at the pole of the Indianapolis 500. Uh-oh, he left his coffee cup and his briefcase on the roof of the Range Rover. And there they remain as he rolls away. To the rescue comes the nice lady social worker for the Episcopal Church in her Ford. She chases after him, urgently honking her horn, honk, 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 which he ignores because he's already on his cellular phone talking to London. Finally, her unceasing honk, 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 honk gets the best of him, and he throws his phone to the floor, leans out the window, and swears at the nice lady social worker.
What the bleeping bleep?
But the lady is focused on her mission. She continues honking her horn, waving at him to stop. I, meanwhile, driving closely behind as a sort of third float in this little parade, likewise try to get his attention with my awooga horn I salvaged out of an old Model A. The combination of honk, 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 and a wooga, 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 finally get his attention. He jams on the brakes, flings open the door of the Veltmobile, and tries to get out without first unlatching his seatbelt. At that same moment, his morning cup of coffee slides off the roof of the Range Rover, bounces off the hood, and smashes into the street, followed by his brass-bound briefcase, which crashes onto the hood, scrapes across the paint with the nails on the chalkboard screech, and flops onto the street, not really on top of his broken coffee cup. The dear lady, mission accomplished, coasts slowly around the scene of the accident, smiles, waves at her dear neighbor dangling from his car in the clutches of his seatbelt, and sings out,
Have a nice day.
and no, she did not, as you might anticipate, run over the briefcase. No, she did not. I totally did. this lady social worker and I meant well, it's not always easy doing good. But later, when I told her about running over the briefcase, she grinned. None of us is pure. Did I mean to run over it? I don't know. Like I said, none of us is pure.
Next. Have you completed the form?
Where am I?
Have you completed the form?
Sure wasn't long climb up.
Yes. Have you completed the form?
Almost.
Almost.
I just have a question.
Which question?
About a blank.
Which blank?
The one that says, religion blank.
Yes. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God?
I believe in Howard.
You believe in Howard?
It all has to do with my mother's maiden name.
Your mother's maiden name?
Was Howard. And she lived in this big family in Memphis called the Howard family. So I always thought of myself as a member of the Howard family.
But what does that have to do with God?
Oh, well, you see, it's really quite simple. Around age 4, I got packed off to Sunday school. And the first thing they teach you is the Lord's Prayer, which begins, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And what I heard was, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And since little kids tend to mutter their prayers anyway, no one really heard what I was saying. So I went right on believing that God's name was Howard, and that I was part of his family, the Howards. I was also told that my grandfather had died and gone to heaven, so my grandfather and God got all mixed up in my head in one endless, which meant I had a pretty comfy notion about God. When I knelt beside my bed each night and prayed, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, I thought about my grandfather and what a big shot he was. Because of course the prayer ends with, For thine is the kingdom and power and glory forever and ever. Amen. I went to bed feeling pretty well connected to the universe for a time.
You're putting me on, right?
No, not at all. I belong to the whole big scheme of things. I've worked and had my being in the family business. The whole universe was a Howard family enterprise.
So, do you still believe in Howard?
Let me put it this way. The 13th century Christian mystic Meister Eckhart once said, For the eye which I see God is the same eye which God sees me.
What the heck is that supposed to mean?
Not only do I believe in Howard, but Howard believes in me.
ladies, a nice, tidy-looking couple. So I'm sitting there in my February state of mind, and this nice old man next to me nudges me and says, "Hey, really good. It's February, right?" "Yeah, it's gotta be February." So I look at him and I say, "Merry Christmas to you." And then he starts singing. All the way through the song, finishes, and then says, and I say, "Merry Christmas to you." Could be me. Just then the nurse comes on.
Fred, come on back. We've been married for 60 years, and Fred's 87 now. And, well, in our family, we say his wiring's gone loose. He's had a few strokes, and there's some Alzheimer's. He's just getting old. And every once in a while, he suddenly announces it's Christmas. The first time it happened, I thought I was crazy. I thought, this is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. Because he shouted from upstairs one morning, "Hey, it's Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas. Let's decorate the tree." It was so strange. I called the girls and I told them what was going on. Well, they came over and they brought presents too. They said, "For God's sake, Mother, it's not illegal." Well, we had a wonderful time. One of the best Christmases we had ever had, even if it was July. And the best part about that whole affair was that he said to me, "You know, I can't remember some of the things from my childhood. Tell me about Christmas when I was a little boy." Well, he had a terrible childhood. His mother was a drunk. His father ran off. He was virtually orphaned when he was very, very young. I didn't want to tell him about that. So, I did something I've never done or thought I would ever do in 60 years with this man. I lied to him. I told him about the Christmas he got a rocking horse, and the Christmas he got a bicycle, and the Christmas he was in the pageant. Oh, and he loved it. One of the best Christmases we had ever had. The strange part was, around bedtime that day, it went out of his mind, and we never did get to Christmas. Christmas Eve and good memories seemed to be enough. 4 months later, it happened all over again. I heard him singing carols, and here came Christmas, down the stairs, "Merry Christmas." And I thought, what harm? So this has happened 4 or 5 times now. In July and in October, twice in December, and no, in February. Each time he asked me to tell him about his childhood, and I do. I'm getting so good at lying about it that I have to believe it myself. And every time I call the girls, they always bring him presents and bake cookies and sing carols, that whole thing. Twice we've even gotten as far as putting up the tree. They love to do it.
Just then, the nurse and the old man come back.
Oh, what
adults don't think of it as Christmas anymore. They think of it as Father's Day. And I think of it as Valentine's Day. Merry Christmas.
Do you know about geek dancing? Yeah, you heard me. Not Greek dancing, geek dancing. Geek is in the dictionary. It refers to a carnival performer whose act consists of strange things such as biting the head off a live chicken.
In urban slang, a geek could also mean someone who looks like they're capable of doing something like that. A person who bears watching.
I've also heard kids use the term geek to describe anyone who's older, more independent in their lifestyle. I think there's a bit of a compliment in there somewhere. It means a little strange, but also interesting. I guess a lot of us older types are a bit geeky. You get to a point in life, you just decide to go ahead and weird out. You start at the door in your bedroom slippers, headed for the grocery store. You don't turn back to go get regular shoes. To hell with it. Or you're going to check the mailbox in your bathrobe, your oldest, sleaziest bathrobe. And you don't go back and change. It's their problem. And sometimes someone knocks at the door. You don't check to see what you look like. It's their problem, whoever they are. Now, about that geek dancing. When I'm in need of an uplifting experience, I go where people dance. I don't mean to joints where people go to get crocs and then wobble around the dance floor. No, I mean I go to joints with people who really know how to dance. Go.
I like dancers. I've never met a serious dancer who wasn't a pretty decent human being. I love seeing who gets out on the floor to dance and seeing the most unlikely couples get out and waltz like complete angels.
My favorite place, the Uptown Tavern, has traditional jazz music from 6:30 to 9:30. The Geek Band plays swing music from New York and Chicago. One thing I love to do is finding the King Hill champion geek for the evening. An old man with white hair, balding, the kind of sort who lists support when he walks. The kind you'd think was strictly nursing home material if you saw him at a bus stop. But you see him here, and you know he's a dancer.
He usually has his wife with him. Check her shoes. If they're black with a strap across the instep, it's a sure bet what she came here for and what she is going to do.
The music cranks up. He sort of limps onto the floor. It's just an act to set you up. And then it happens.
She steps into a permanent spotlight formed by his embrace. The years fall away, and once again, Cinderella and Prince Charming dance to the music in the room and the music in their hearts.
He dances flat-footed with an economy of motion.
It takes about 40 years to dance with a partner this way.
Their eyes meet from time to time. I want to be, and fully intend to be, an old geek dancer.
Ah, then you'll be needing the very best geek trainer possible.
No, it is a public responsibility for a geek to help everybody stay young as long as they can. To set a good example for the next generation of geeks. And I don't want to die quietly on my bed either, but to sit down in my chair after the last dance, smile, and pass on.
This all reminds me of something I heard about the Hopi natives. They don't think there's that much difference between dancing and praying, and that both are essential for a long life. They must know they've been through a lot and they're still around. They say to be a useful Hopi is to be one that has a quiet heart and takes part in all the dances.
Yes.
What is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? Well, who knows? You may have the answer, and I would hate to miss it because I was too socially inhibited to ask.
Once, and only once.
I asked that question.
What is the meaning of life?
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 And got a serious answer. An answer that is still with me. The place where this happened has a distinct power of its own. On the Greek island of Crete, near a small village on a rocky bay, sits an institute dedicated to peace and human understanding, but mostly to reconciliation between the Germans and the natives of Crete.
Beside this place holds the history of when German paratroopers came to the island, were attacked by Greek peasants wielding hay scythes and kitchen knives.
The retribution was terrible. Whole populations of entire villages were lined up and shot by Hitler's finest troops.
High above the Institute is a cemetery with a single cross marking the mass grave of the native partisans. Across the bay, on another hill, is the regimented burial ground of the Nazi paratroopers.
Hatred was the only weapon the Greeks had in the end, and it was the weapon they vowed never to give up.
In a place where the stone of hatred is hard and thick, an institute dedicated to healing the wounds of war is a fragile paradox.
So how has it come to be here?
The answer is a man, Alexander Papaderos, doctor of philosophy, teacher, politician, son of this soil. After the war, he believed the people of Crete and those of Germany had a lot to learn from each other, much to give one another, and that if they could forgive and construct a creative relationship, anyone in the world could.
Well, Papaderos succeeded. The Institute became a reality, a conference ground on the site of horror and a source of productive interaction between the two countries. By the time I came to the Institute for summer session, Alexander Papaderos was already a living legend. One look at him and you could see his strength, his intelligence, and his passion.
At the end of a 2-week seminar, Papaderos rose from his chair at the back of the class and walked to the front.
We followed his gaze to the iron cross marking the German cemetery.
Are there any questions?
Quiet quilted the room.
These last few weeks, I've generated enough questions for a lifetime. But for now, there was only silence.
So I asked, Dr. Papaderos, what is the meaning of life?
People laughed at the absurdity of the question and stirred to go.
He raised his hand and stilled the room.
I will answer the question.
He fished into his leather billfold and pulled out a small round mirror. What he said went like this.
When I was a small boy, my family was very, very poor, and we lived in a small village. One day, on a walk, on the road, I came across the pieces of a broken mirror. A German motorcycle had been wrecked in this place.
I tried to fit all the pieces together, but it was impossible. So I kept the large one, this one, and I rounded it on a stone. I became fascinated with the fact that it could reflect light into dark places. I began to play with it like a toy. It became a game for me to try and get light into the most inaccessible places I could find.
I kept the little mirror, and as I went about my growing up, I took it out in idle moments to renew the challenge of the game. But as I became an adult, I realized that I is not a game. It is not a game, but in fact a metaphor for how I might live my life. I realized that I am not the source of the light, or the light itself, but the light, truth,
Understanding.
knowledge, is there, and it will shine in dark places only if I reflect it.
I am but a fragment of a mirror, whose whole design and shape I do not know. Nevertheless, I can shine light into the darkest places of the world, and into the black hearts of men. And I hope that people will see and do likewise. This is what I am about. This is the meaning of my life.
Then holding the mirror carefully, he caught the rays of the afternoon sun and reflected them onto my face and onto my hands folded on the desk.
Are there any questions?
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 A way to measure what these fragments are worth. Scattered moments of connection to this life on earth. Flashes of understanding that can set your soul ablaze and flicker softly through all of your days. Stop now and listen. Can you hear a faint melody just outside here, all around us? A great symphony, but nothing in life has the power to inspire, like adding your own voice to the mighty choir. How can we live in the dark when we could be part of that light? How do we capture that spark, reflect it into the heart of the night? feels wrong. I know Walsh said she's not coming, but this feels wrong.
You did it! You did it!
Oh my God, okay. She said she's not coming. I'm going up this way, as per tradition. Tradition. There you go. I did it. We did it. There you go.